For the first time since the Belarusian authorities forced a plane flying through its airspace to land in Minsk, the President Alexander Lukashenko has spoken. He was addressing the Belarusian parliament to give his view on why a Ryanair flight on its way to Lithuania was ordered to land by a military jet. He says he didn't know the dissident journalist Roman Protasevich was on board until it landed. He says he took appropriate measures to protect the country.
As we predicted, our ill wishers at home and abroad have changed their methods of attacking the state. They have crossed many red lines and crossed boundaries of common sense and human morality.
Well, speaking to the BBC earlier, the Lithuanian Prime Minister said Mr. Lukashenko's statements couldn't be taken seriously.
It's so complicated for anyone who believes in rule of law, institutions and Western democracies to believe in anything Mr. Lukashenko is saying. I think they will invent whatever legend they need to try and shelter their wrongdoings.
That was the Lithuanian Prime Minister there. Well, the BBC's Sarah Rainsford sent us this update from Minsk.
Well, this was Alexander Lukashenko very much going on the offensive and defending his own actions and the actions of Belarus in what happened with that Ryanair flight. He essentially presented Belarus as saving the day. He talked about acting to save lives. He claimed there was a real security threat to the plane. What else was I supposed to do, is what Alexander Lukashenko said today. But in the same breath, he also referred to Roman Protasevich and to his girlfriend, Sofia Sapega, who were both detained, of course, when that flight was diverted to Minsk. He talked about them as agents of the West, claiming that they were backed by the West to damage, to harm Belarus. And he painted the West essentially as at war with Belarus, a hybrid war, he called it, putting unprecedented pressure on this country. He also seemed to have an appeal in there to Russia, to Vladimir Putin, for continuing and in fact even increasing its support and cooperation, because he said that the West was using Belarus as a training ground, a testing ground for what it plans to do in Russia. So this was really the leader of Belarus presenting this country as beleaguered, as under attack, and saying, OK, you're sanctioning us. We'll weather that storm. It's not a problem because we have a big brother, a big ally in Russia, and we'll stand strong.
Sarah Rainsford reporting there from Minsk. Well, earlier our Moscow correspondent Steve Rosenberg told me more about Russia's position.
Whether or not Moscow knew about this drama before it happened, I think Russia sees benefits for itself in what is happening right now. Because now that Alexander Lukashenko has basically burned all the bridges with the West, he is more reliant than ever before on Moscow, politically and financially. And that puts President Putin in quite a strong position as he pushes to try to get closer ties with Belarus and more influence there. Also, there's another benefit, I think, for the Russians, because what's happening takes the focus off Vladimir Putin right now. You know, Mr. Putin has come under heavy criticism this year for the jailing of Alexei Navalny, for what appears to be a crackdown on democracy and freedom of speech in Russia. But what has happened in Minsk on Sunday and the following days sort of takes the focus from the Kremlin onto Alexander Lukashenko. He now looks like the bad boy of Europe. And I think the Russians will be pleased about that, especially in the run-up to the Russia-US summit with Joe Biden in Geneva next month.
Steve, I suppose the question is, to what extent is Russia, Vladimir Putin, willing to have Lukashenko's back, especially if the EU cracks down and imposes tougher sanctions? Will they be willing to fill the void, as you say, financially?
This is a really interesting question. You know, one Russian paper today said that Russia was supporting Mr. Lukashenko through clenched teeth. And why through clenched teeth? Well, I think because of the money. Because there is a suggestion that things are going to get very tough for Belarus financially because of the sanctions which have been announced recently and because of other sanctions probably which will come in the coming weeks. And one Russian newspaper today suggested that in order to keep the Belarusian economy afloat, Russia might have to reach into its pocket and pay $5 billion. That is a lot of money. And I would imagine that when Mr. Lukashenko comes to Russia on Friday, the talks with Mr. Putin, money will be on the agenda.
Steve Rosenberg reporting there.